Alrighty guys, a few months ago I made a roundup video of my top control pads. In this video I spoke about PMM's C1P and more controversially the S1P, their speed pad. In my testing, the pad tended far closer towards a controlled balance pad than anything close to a true speed pad. PMM took this feedback and ran with it, bringing out their new S2P mousepad. But how did they do? Not only does the S2P perform far more in line with what you would expect with a speed pad, it is also one of the first pads to feature edgeless stitching, a new innovation within the mousepad space. They are not the only company to do so, but one of the first to bring this method of stitching to the market. Before we go in depth on how well PMM executed this and if it's truly a step forward, let's talk about the surface's performance. The S2P comes in at 490 by 420 mm with a mid-hardness base, having a thickness of between 4 and 4.5 mm. In terms of speed, the S2P is far quicker than its predecessor, with an average friction coefficient of 0.249 compared to the S1P's 0.283. This puts it in competition with other speed pads such as the Artisan Raiden with a coefficient of 0.23, the Pulsar Hyperion at 0.238, and the QCK Performance Speed at 0.247. Personally, I find this to be the sweet spot for speed pads. It isn't insanely uncontrollable to the point where players not used to low friction could struggle, but fast enough to offer the benefits of this kind of glide, especially compared to the Raiden, as its surface texture and weave is incredibly similar to its Artisan counterpart. PMM truly hit it out of the park with this surface. There is some tactile feedback, but the pad overall is very smooth. The base gives way slightly to allow for pressure-based flick stopping, but not enough to consistently bottom out with dot skates. I am really in love with the surface. My only note was that it was relatively difficult to clean compared to other pads, with a damp microfiber cloth getting rid of most of the dust which accumulated. But some parts were more difficult to clean off than others. This is something to bear in mind for those with a lot of dust in their environment, though I didn't notice this impacting performance. On this note, I noticed no difference in performance in different humidities, having tested the pad in a range between about 30 to 65% humidity. The most unique aspect of this pad isn't the surface though, as incredible as it is the edge stitching, or lack thereof. This unique method of stitching entirely eliminates the internal stitching which is seen on basically any other premium pad these days, and spans the material of the pad all the way around the edges. While I was concerned that this could cause issues of longevity, I noticed no issues whatsoever in terms of the stitching becoming looser in the 3 or so weeks of testing. It also eliminates the sensation of a different material to the pad surface when moving over it with the arm. One small aesthetic hiccup, so to speak, is the corner lift which this method of stitching creates universally across edgeless stitched pads. Here I am referring to the edges of the pad slightly raising off the desk due to the high amount of tension across the surface material, pulling on the base. This has had absolutely no impact on my gameplay experience, but it is something to note in terms of the experience. It is very minimal, but definitely noticeable for anyone that pays attention. So far, so good, right? Yes, edgeless stitching definitely has its benefits, and I do think that many companies will adapt it going forward, as we are already seeing with some others. It isn't perfect yet though, or at least PMM's execution of the principle could have been improved upon. My biggest issue personally is the fact that at 4mm the pad is relatively thick, and for someone who aims with a lot of their arm on the desk, I noticed some discomfort after a time where my arm was meeting the edge of the pad. I use the corner of my desk to anchor my arm, and so big changes in elevation are noticeable for me. This is less of an issue with regular stitching, as it is typically softer than edgeless stitching, so it isn't as noticeable, and if I play with an arm sleeve, the texture difference doesn't matter either. In PMM's case though, the combination of my relatively long forearms together with my aiming style make it somewhat uncomfortable after longer periods. This is not to say that it is inherently poor designed, but rather that it doesn't align with my anatomy properly. Another solution would simply be to have a larger pad size, such as a 500 by 500mm option, allowing me to pull the pad all the way to the edge of my desk and still have full range of motion for my arm. Ultimately, in this scenario, I would be using the bottom of the pad as an anchor point rather than my desk, as I do with many other pads. This is what I do with La Onda's edgeless pads, which do have a slightly different anatomy, as well as a softer base and larger size, making them a more comfortable experience for me personally. This is something PMM could look into for their next iteration. The polyurethane base sticks to my desk very well, leaving me with absolutely no issues of the pad moving around during gameplay. Especially due to the somewhat thicker base, the additional weight helps the desk adhesion quite well. No notes here. Overall, the S2P is one of the best surfaces I have used in recent times. The only real downside I found was quite relevant to the way I play, so it may not even necessarily be an issue for you. Larger size options would fix this issue for me personally as well, so I am hoping that PMM will offer larger sizes with time. The S2P is an instant recommendation for me, for anyone looking for a faster cloth pad which isn't so quick that it becomes unworkable. Especially with more controlled skates, the pad was an absolute joy to use. Thank you very much for watching my video and review of the PMM S2P. Thank you so much for PMM for involving me in the review process for this mousepad before its release. I really appreciate them giving me this opportunity to have a look at this pad. That being said, everything that I said in this video is entirely my own opinion, and I gave the same feedback to PMM already ahead of time, so I hope that they can take these notes on board for the next pad that they release. That being said, thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.